Welcome to What the Bible Says, a Lugnuts podcast group production. Hello, good morning, good evening, whenever you're listening to this podcast, or if you want to call it a podcast at this point, this conversation between you and I.
Whatever it's called.
It's something at this point. So it's been a while. We haven't been we didn't record past couple of weeks. We've been busy doing other things, but don't worry, we haven't forgotten about you. So it's great to be back. So we're going to just dive right in. We believe we're on chapter 13. If we're wrong, unfortunately, there's no way for you guys to tell us live that, hey, you guys are on the wrong chapter.
I think we're right.
But we think we're right. Does that mean we're right, actually? That's the question of the day. But we're just going to do chapter 13 anyway because we're on chapter 13. So I really didn't have a whole lot on page 107. If you had more than what I did, then feel free. I only had one thing.
Well, what's that? Maybe it's the same thing.
All the way down at the bottom. That doesn't mean Jane's relationship with God was the cause of her depression, but at least her depression exposed how when life was sufficiently difficult and her faith was severely tested, Jane found God irrelevant, which made her relationship with God very relevant.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had something else on there, then feel free to let me know what you have.
Well, I think just in the very first paragraph, it just talks about this fictional person, Jane, is on the verge of hospitalization. Can she make it another day? Should she be committed? And then the question that I had, what do you do when you know hospitalization isn't going to help? Because I think this is part of the question that we're trying to help people work their way through is depression, is there potentially an organic problem situation that medication, hospitalization could help? Yes.
Right.
But many times that's not really the problem. The problem is your thinking has gone sideways, and no amount of drugs or hospitalization is going to be helpful. And that's where this chapter is getting at, is that when life squeezes your heart, what comes out?
Right.
And this is situation is that next paragraph on page 108. It says, Jane trusted God when circumstances went her way, but not when she went through hard trials. And I just said, don't we all?
Yeah.
That's us, And so again, that's where our heart gets immediately exposed. It's not so much when things are going well and everything is rainbows and unicorns, but it's when things go south and you go, okay, how much do I really, Jerry Bridges has a book, Is God Really in Control? That's a great question. And when things are going well, you go, of course. But things are not going well, you go, I don't know, God, are you really in control? Obvious answer is, of course he is. But from my perspective, I don't know if maybe I question, and that's the whole purpose then of trials and hard times, is to help develop our perseverance as far as our faith. So that to me, that's kind of the big picture of this chapter, is the heart of depression, is not downplaying the role of medicine or hospitalization or seeing a doctor, but saying, is that the long-term cure?
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's not, because that doesn't give hope. How much hope do you have when you say you're going to have to have medication the rest of your life, or you're going to be in a hospital the rest of your life, or whatever? And again, I'm not trying to make fun of it. It's just, it's not hope giving at all. Wouldn't you like to say, what's the source of the problem? Let's go get rid of the source of the problem. I really don't want to do this, I don't want temporary relief. I want permanent relief.
Right.
relief.
Right.
So the heart of depression says, what does permanent relief look like?
Mm-hmm.
That's my 2 cents worth to get us going here. How's that sound?
I like it.
All right.
And then, on page 108, it's the figure 13.1. I know we've talked about it before, but the figure 13.1, it's like, come on. It's like, Steve, I figured it out.
What?
I realized why it's figure 13.1.
Why is that?
Chapter 13,
Yes.
figure 1. I just now figured that out. I was today years old when I figured that out. Like
Yeah,
figure 7.1, chapter 7, image number 1.
It all of a sudden got brighter in here.
It really did. It smells better in here too.
The light bulb went on. The unicorns and rainbows. They all of a sudden they popped out. There's a leprechaun in here with a pot of gold. It's Lucky Charms all over the place. Magically delicious.
Hey.
It's just. We can just say amen and just end it right here.
We gotta play. Hey, let's play "Bind Us Together," and we'll
huge
do that.
Been a huge revelation.
So, okay, after all of that, and finally figuring that out, wow, down that rabbit trail. Anyway, the figure is like, it starts with outside events, things outside of our control, and things that come at us. Goes down to internal beliefs and interpretations, things that we can change, and things that come out of us, and then that goes into depression, which is just a never-ending cycle between all of those. I added I started the figure, but then I wrote down, maybe the second time I read the book, first time, I don't know. Everything gets lost, but I wrote down 3 piles helps with this. If you don't know what 3 piles are, is you got your pile, God's pile, and others. And there's a whole sermon in there in 3 piles, but making sure that your pile is stuff that you can control. Other people's piles is none of your business, and then God's pile is like certainly none of your business because only God can control that.
Right.
So that's kind of the layman's, I guess. Layman's definition of 3 piles.
Yeah, I mean that's where a lot of the times the discouragement and depression comes in, because I'm trying to micromanage what's in God's pile or other people's piles, and I don't have any way to manufacture or change the outcome, and so therefore I can either say, okay, that's not my pile. Doesn't mean that I don't care or I just give up, but it's like, you know what, God. I always like this interesting. I tell God, okay, God, that's your pile. Like God needs God needs me to like, oh, well, thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
He needed the clarification.
I needed that. I was a little confused. That was my pile or your pile. Thanks. I really appreciate the fact that you really helped me kind of think that one through. So anyway.
Yeah. And then I like that little small paragraph underneath that. I'm not going to read it all, but I just love that first sentence. Things don't simply happen to us.
Right.
It's like, I didn't lose my mom just, because God rolled the dice and said, oh, snap. Hey, Kenny, by the way,
right.
luck of the draw for you,
right.
or unluck of the draw.
Right.
Your mom's going to die today.
Right.
Sorry. I'll still be here for you, but, that's...
Right.
No, things don't simply happen to us. It's stuff happens for a reason, even though we don't know. We may not ever know, but it's not because God's just some cosmic killjoy up there enjoying the fact that, oh, Kenny, he's going to be depressed for a few years, 12 years. Look at that. Yes, right. Exactly what I want. No.
Right.
So, but then it kind of switches to how I kind of felt during my depression. And if there was ever a time that it can really explain how my depression was, these next few things that I had underlined really explain it.
Okay.
So it goes, for example, let's say someone didn't say hello to you at church. Okay, not a big deal. But you interpret it as, she's angry at me she's a snob, or she must have had a lot on her mind and I need to give her a call. This part here is where it kind of gets it. Is it rains the entire weekend you had set aside to paint something outside, some outside woodwork. You interpret it as, I can't believe this is happening to me, which means I can't believe God is doing this to me. Or you might say, I believe God is even good through, even though I am disappointed, I believe he's even in these details. So basically, in my depression, I found negatives in everything. So, like, for example, I asked somebody, he's like, hey, you want to hang out today? They go, nah, I'm kind of busy. I'll take that as they don't want to hang out with me. I did something that's unfixable in their eyes. Ergo, it's the excuse of, nah, I'm kind of busy today. Something happens with my vehicle. This is one of the best worst examples.
Okay.
It was after the harvest party one year, and I had just wrapped up having a conversation with two people for about 2 hours after the harvest party ended. So we were there until like 11 or something like that. I'm on the way home. You know, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling a lot lighter. I've gotten a lot of things off my chest. On the way home, a deer runs out in front of me, hits my car. Immediately, the one thought in my mind goes, well, if you didn't air everything out, you wouldn't have hit a deer. I was like, the immediate first thought was that. It went instantly to the negative. Instead of going, okay, you know, a deer runs out in front of me. Darn, you know, it's got to get it fixed. No, if you wouldn't have talked with people about what's going on in your life, you wouldn't have hit a deer and nothing would have happened. Now, that's one of the biggest lies that could possibly happen and I could ever tell myself. But that was basically what my depression was, is I found negatives in everything. It doesn't matter what it was. I could find negatives in everything, which was very unfortunate. And I still kind of struggle with that a little bit. Now, not as bad, but, you know, I still have those thoughts occasionally, but now I'm a lot better at controlling those thoughts and telling those thoughts, you know, hey, no, not today. We're not going back down this trail because I've beaten my depression. I ain't going back to it. So those couple of paragraphs there really just help explain kind of what my depression looked like.
Okay. Interesting.
And this little quote here on page 109 from Paradise Lost kind of helps explain it too. The mind's its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. That was basically my mind. It was really bad. So now in the little sub chapter here, your heart defined. Your story, your interpretations, your motivations, and your beliefs come out of your heart. This is the center of your life. The heart oversees the whys, why work, why play, why love. It's the defining feature of humanness. And I love the little verses there. I had all those starred. It was Proverbs 4:23, Matthew 12:34, and then Luke 6:45. I had all those starred. And then
your heart's just what makes you human.
Yeah.
And then that's where, again, it just talks about, you know, your beliefs. This is where, you know, your will is, your emotions, the reasoning that you do. It's those things that separate us from the plants and animals. You know, it's the heart of the individual. So that's when we talk about heart. That's what we're talking about. It defines humanness. I think that's well put. It's, you know, what what makes you a human being. It's your heart, and it's not your physical heart. It's your spiritual heart that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And then on 110, I really love the kind of all the questions. They're kind of towards the middle to lower half of the page. Why do you love God? Who do you love, God or the world? Who do you trust, God or people? So on and so forth. I like those questions. Those are good questions to ask people if they're going through depression. It's like, well, who do you love? Who do you trust? Who or what do you worship? That one right there is a really big one.
Right.
And I think you and I, when we were going through this book before turning this into a podcast, we kind of like, oh, that's a really great question to ask. Who or what do you worship? Who will you serve? Who do you obey? For whose glory do you live? Where's your treasure? To whom do you belong? Just really, they're not questions you need to answer right away. Those are like really questions that you need to ponder for a while and really say, hey, okay, what am I worshiping? Who am I worshiping other than God? If, you're struggling with that.
Well, those are always, good questions always convict.
Yeah.
When you ask good questions. And those are all heart-probing questions that kind of cut through the outer layer of who we are, because we all put on this happy face and all this veneer that's on us, and these are questions that are designed to say, nope, we're cutting straight to the heart.
Yeah.
If you'll be honest, and that's the key.
Yeah.
But just the first question, who do you love? Well, what's the answer? I love me. Let's just be honest about it.
Right? Yeah.
I love me.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the problem. Why it's hard to say no to me and yes to Jesus, because I love me. But do I love me to that extent? And could that be my problem? Why I'm dealing with my depression? So those are all really good questions.
Then going on to page 111, there's a couple sentences where it's that first actual paragraph. Some people claim to be atheists. They've thought about whether or not God exists and chosen to believe that there is no God. But here again, the heart will be revealed. And I circled the word chosen, and I just put it's a choice. In parentheses, it's free will, and that's what God has given us since He created man, His free will. We had a choice as humans. Well, Adam and Eve had a choice, whether or not to eat of the fruit of the forbidden tree. And they made the choice of, we want to be like God. We want to know everything.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, you had that free will, but and that's when God was like, okay, I'm going to step back out of the world and kind of limit what power I have over the world and allow sin and all this stuff because you guys disobeyed. So your punishment is all of humanity after you is cursed.
Right.
So.
Yep. And then there's figure 13.2.
Yes.
Wow. What does that mean?
Chapter 13. Yeah. That's the 13. And then figure number 2.
It's the second picture.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing how that goes. 1, then 2. I can hardly wait to find 13.3. Maybe not. So.
I don't think there's a 13.3.
Yeah.
But if there was, I'd probably be the same reaction. But yeah, there's that image. It's just a view of the heart. It's a pyramid. Kind of looks like the food pyramid. But it's got actions at the top, thoughts and feelings right after, imaginations, desires, and motives. And then right at the bottom is spiritual allegiances.
Right. That's your base.
Yep.
That's why, that's at the bottom, because everything, flows. That's, your imagination, desires, motives. From that flows your thoughts and feelings, and from that flows your actions. That's why this is such a simple diagram, but profound diagram, because normally we flip that,
Yes.
and actions are the basis,
Yeah.
and spiritual allegiances are up top. You know, and they're very, I'm just living. The Bible says, if you just let this go, you're just nothing more than about like an animal. You're just giving in to just your own brute instincts of just survival. And we see some people that that's kind of how they look. They just have animal-like instincts and how they process life and what they do. And it's like, that's how, and their thoughts and feelings. You ask them, "What are you thinking?" And the answer is, "I'm not."
Right.
At all.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want? What are your desires and motives? And again, it's all about me. Well, where's God in the midst of all that? Well, he's not even he's not even in the picture. Obviously, he's just the whole diagram has just been flipped upside down when it comes to the world and how the world views their actions. So very simple but profound. 13.2.
13.2.
13.2.
So then on page 112, we get into the next little subchapter, the natural inclination of the heart. Our hearts, as we have seen, are out of kilter. That's Ed, that's one way to describe it. Yep. That's probably the best way that you can describe it. And this is no surprise to you because your entire life feels out of kilter. And then it just keeps going on, and then there's little italicized things here. So we are proud. It's one of them. It's like, tell us something we don't know here, right. Ed. It's like, may not make a lot of sense at first, especially when you feel so low, but our hearts are proud. And then going on, there's in that next sentence, since ancient times, people have bowed down to idols in the appearance of humility, and I circled humility. And then, but their goal wasn't to be mastered by the idol. People worship to get things. We choose idols in part because we believe that they will give us what we want. The god of drugs brings fearlessness. The god of sex promises pleasure and intimacy. The god of wealth holds out power and influence. We feel miserable about ourselves because we want to be great, at least at something, and we are not feeling great. Like the prophets of Baal, we are arrogant enough to believe that we can manipulate the idol, whether by cutting or some other form of works of righteousness, so it will relent and give us what we want. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we are proud. And then we crave autonomy. You've heard a lot of that in mainstream media,
right.
Autonomy, bodily autonomy, and yeah.
Well, nobody wants to be accountable. Nobody wants to have anybody, having a say in how they do or what they do or how they live their life. And it's really interesting because it's not how God hardwired us. God hardwired us from day one. If you take a look at Genesis, first off, God created us to have a relationship with Him, and then God created Adam and Eve to have a relationship with each other. God created us to live in community.
Yeah.
That's how we're created.
Right.
But yet, the natural inclination of the heart is to crave autonomy. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what the enemy wants.
Yeah.
The enemy wants you just to ball up, go into a little corner of the room, and just say, I don't need God, I don't need other people, I can make this on my own. And when you do that, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, it goes on after we crave autonomy. Autonomy is closely linked to arrogance. They are both expressions of human pride. Mm-hmm. But autonomy suggests that we want to be separate from more than over. And there's more to that explanation in that whole paragraph there. And it goes, one popular expression of autonomy is American deism, and that's one of the bigger ones.
Well, simply put, pride has two faces. Pride is, I'm better than you.
And pride is I don't need you.
I don't need you. And that's what this is talking about.
Yeah.
That's where the self-autonomy comes in. Pride is I don't need you. You know, I like it says your system is higher than God's.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't need you at all. I'll figure this out. I'll do it on my own. And that's where the depression comes in, because at some point in time, no matter how much you deceive yourself, you figure out I don't have the capability to manufacture the outcome that I want. And at that point, I can either admit I'm wrong,
Oh, right.
and that's hard because of my pride,
Yeah.
and say, God, you're right, I'm wrong. Please forgive me. I want to come back, i.e., prodigal son.
Mm-hmm.
Or you just keep sinking into a deeper hole, and to the point of you just get yourself so, desperately miserable that the hole you've dug yourself, even though you can dig yourself out, is, just it's a deep pit. It's hard to get out of.
Yeah. And then, here's the way out of autonomy. Begins with the simple prayer of, Lord, teach me. I want to think like you. And then what I had underlined, and I think what kind of sticks out for this little section here, is just think what it would be like to be certain that the God of the universe loved you. That alone would probably change the contours of depression. And then we want to indulge our desires. Pride and autonomy are not all what's wrong with our hearts. And then we want more. I want more security, more love, more peace, more money, more respect, more freedom, more beauty, and so on. We all want more food at a potluck, more dessert before we get to the main course for potlucks or any sort of other meal, because that's in the book of First Stephen, and if you don't get that verse, then sorry, not sorry, man.
Yeah, you missed it. Well, then it says it kind of sums it up in that next paragraph. The problem is that even if we get more, we never feel quite satisfied, so we want more still. It's just never ending.
Yeah,
it's almost an addictive type of cycle that we get into. Is if I just had a little bit more, that would satisfy me. Then I get that little bit more, and I'm not satisfied. Well, if I just had a little bit more, that would satisfy me. And never does.
Mm-hmm. And then the next little subtitle is needs and allegiances. And that first sentence just really had stuck out with me. First time reading it, second time reading it, third time. I don't even know what time I'm on in this book. But many depressed people have been hurt and rejected by others. And that is really true. That is really true. At least for me anyway. They feel as though basic relational needs have not been met, and they will be stuck in depression until they are. Now, I wasn't all like that, but there was a lot of relationships where, I thought it was going one way. Things happened and went another way and kind of helped. I say helped, it's kind of the wrong word. Kind of steered everything down more depression in a way. Trust, people breaking my trust or what have you, things like that. And now I've still deal with trust issues with people, so that's kind of where things have started.
Well, I like then just the second last paragraph says the desire for love is good. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that left unchecked, it never stops growing.
Right. Yeah.
Keep in mind, our hearts keep repeating the chorus, we want more love and more again. It's here that you observe the spiritual roots. And then again, the next paragraph, the last sentence, like the ancient idolaters, we have said that God is not enough. We just can't get enough of that, even though it's a good thing.
And then that next paragraph there on page 115, the feeling of emptiness is usually a sign that we've put our trust in something that can't sustain us. And then it keeps going on there. And then a 2-sentence paragraph. I don't get why this is a paragraph, but I'm not the one who wrote the book.
Mm-hmm.
Keep probing. Life is ultimately about God. And I underlined that and then circled life is ultimately about God.
Right.
And then it goes on there and it uses Luke 15:11 through 24, and it's basically the prodigal son. That's what that is. And if you're straying far from God and you're like, you know what, I need to turn around and go the other way, then, well, there's going to be a feast in heaven waiting for you. So turn around and go the other way if you need to turn around and go the other way.
Yep.
And then we get to the response. This is one of the shorter chapters in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
again, I think, I'll stop. The first point is the whole point of this, and I'll let you continue on there, O wise one.
That's awesome. Hey, it's fine. It's fine. I like when you pitch in.
Well, first, don't think that this means that your sin is causing you depression.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. I mean, this is trying to find the balance of what's going on. There could be lots of things that are. I mean, that's what the chapter before was all about.
Right.
The chapter was depression has its reasons. Its culture.
And then the chapter before that is other people, Adam and Satan.
Right. And so be very careful about beating yourself up as far as, is this really a sin issue? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. The heart is a heart. It's a tricky thing to figure out.
Yeah.
But that last sentence in that first paragraph, that paragraph says, but this doesn't automatically mean that sin is the cause of your depression.
Yeah. And then going on there, second, keep Christ close on this part of the path. Let's see, page. I have a note. Oh, it goes to says keep Psalm 130 close, and I put down in my for the page number for Psalm 130, which is page 931. I know that's not going to help anybody out there unless you have a CSB Bible, study Bible that is, and you flip to page 931 and it's Psalm 130. Other than that, page 931 is not going to do you any sort of good. But there's that. But yeah, keep Christ close on this part of the path, and quite frankly, for the rest of your life too. I mean, not just for your battle with depression, all the time. And then the last part of that paragraph is He doesn't forgive because you are sad about your sin. He forgives because Jesus paid the penalty in full.
Right.
And then on page 116, kind of wrapping everything up, the curious path to true life is to grow in both the knowledge of God's love and your own sin. While I regarded God as a tyrant, I thought my life as a trifle. But when I knew Him to be my Father, then I mourned that I could never have kicked against Him. Knowing God without knowing our wretchedness makes for pride. Knowing our own wretchedness without knowing God makes for despair. And then I started this one. Knowing Jesus Christ strikes the balance because He shows us both God and our own wretchedness. And then the question that usually all the chapters end with, and this one is kind of a good question to end with. What do you see in your own heart?
Oh, I hate that question. Stop it. I didn't come here to be convicted. It's enough of that. You're plowing way too close to the corn now.
Right.
That'll be enough of that.
Right. So, yeah, that was kind of one of the shorter chapters in the book. Don't get used to it. There are longer chapters, but
it's very definite and necessary, because that's really, as we look at the second part of this book, because you've got to have the heart, and then next, chapter 14, we're going to kind of rip it open and go, the heart unveiled. That's the part, like going, oh man, I don't know if I really like that.
Yeah. So you thought that question was a good probing question. Right. The next whole chapter is going to be even more probing.
Yep.
But that's what this book does. It does that. It's good probing questions to ask yourself. So yeah, the next chapter will be chapter 14. But until then, whenever we record chapter 14, whether it's next week, 2 weeks from now, whenever, we're just saying, I'm going to end in a different way, Steve.
Uh-oh, all right.
We're going to go all the way back to when we were actually doing a podcast on Sunday mornings, and that was how we always closed out
Sounds good.
our podcast. And just so for Kenny Cramer and Steve Cox, we're saying, Jesus, don't forget, Jesus loves you, and
So do we.
We hope you enjoyed the podcast today. If you did, please check out our website for more podcast episodes and shows at thelugnasspodcastgroup.com. Like us on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll see you next week.